Early narrative films, such as The Life of an American Fireman, directed by Edwin S. Porter in 1903, are useful for studying developments in the history of film editing. In this example from the final scene of the film, in which a fireman rescues a woman and her child from a burning house, we can see how audiences in 1903 would have expected to see such a scene arranged. Porter's approach here, in keeping with the practice of the time, employed temporal overlapping, which involves repeating the action in its entirety from two different perspectives, in this case, inside and outside of the house. First, we see the action from the inside of the house, from the perspective of the woman calling for help from her window before collapsing on her bed. Next, we see the fireman enter through the bedroom door and carry the woman down the ladder to safety. Finally, he returns for her child and exits through the window as the other firemen enter with their water hoses to douse the flames. This idea of completing the entire action within a single shot and then repeating it from a different perspective in another shot may seem unintuitive and even disorienting today, but audiences in 1903 would have expected to see the actions played out in this way and understood the two perspectives to represent concurrent periods of screen time. Next, we see the same action repeated from the exterior of the house, this time from the perspective of the fireman on the ground. Note the frontal framing of the house, which provides a direct reverse view from what we saw in the interior shot to allow the audience to instantly make the spatial connections between the two perspectives. Also note that the shot ends with the two firemen ascending the ladder. We do not see them enter the window and begin dousing the flames as in the previous angle, thus somewhat condensing the screen time. Now, here is a re-edited version of the same scene using the technique of continuity editing or parallel editing. That is, cutting back and forth between the shots and matching the action between the two perspectives over the same duration of screen time, which is how we would expect to see the shots arranged if it were made today. Note that some of the shots do not match up precisely on the action, as Porter was not filming these with the idea of coverage in mind, as today's filmmakers would do when shooting multiple angles of the same scene. That said, by intercutting the two different angles this way, it allows us to see the degree to which the action had been carefully rehearsed by Porter and his company, and emphasizes the consistency of the two perspectives that helped audiences accept the two as having occurred simultaneously. It would only be a short leap from this approach of temporal overlapping to the elaborate cross-cutting perfected by D.W. Griffith several years later. Incidentally, some confusion over the editing of Life of an American Fireman has arisen over the years. A copy of the film in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art arranged the shots in continuity fashion, cutting between the interior and exterior shots of the house, just as we are seeing now, causing some film scholars to attribute to Porter the kind of sophisticated cross-cutting techniques later developed by Griffith. It was realized after comparing it against other copies of the film, including one in the Library of Congress paper print collection, that this version had been re-edited at a later date to conform to the expectations and conventions of continuity editing, instead of the temporal overlapping that would have seemed perfectly natural to audiences of 1903. Nonetheless, The Life of an American Fireman remains an important milestone in the development of screen narrative and film editing.